Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking all things camera equipment and why I, in my 8th year of being a freelance videographer, photographer, choose to shoot everything on Sony cameras. Let's go, let's get into it. All right, so a quick background context. If you are watching this video and you are looking to purchase your first ever camera, you are just deciding to get into videography, photography, and you're looking for a camera to buy and you don't know which one, my biggest recommendation is to buy the cheapest option that is available to you, that you can learn the ins and outs of the craft. You can practice and develop your style. And once you have created it into a business, a sustainable business that's generating income and revenue for you, that's when you can decide to invest in higher quality, higher end, more expensive camera equipment. For example, when I started my photography and videography career or journey in 2015, I did a bunch of research and I ended up buying a $500 camera off of Amazon, and it was a Canon EOS Rebel SL1 with a kit lens, nothing crazy, nothing fancy, and I learned everything about that camera. I think I had that camera for the first 2 years of me learning how to do everything that I wanted to, and it got me up to my first paid job ever in like 2016, early 2016. So my biggest recommendation, if you're looking to buy a camera, definitely start out with the Canon Rebel T series. I know a lot of my friends started on that. Sony also has a really great line of cheaper cameras like the Sony A600, A650. I think it's 600 or 6,000. Don't quote me on that, but it's one of those. Those are cheaper cameras that'll really teach you how to start, learn about frame rate, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, all those things that are essential to creating your vision via a camera. I have been shooting on Sony cameras since I started my professional career in 2016. And a big reason for that was because the first production company that I ever freelanced for, called Happy Monday, based out of Brooklyn, which I still freelance to this day, they were shooting everything on Sony cameras. I didn't really know too much about cameras at that point. Again, was shooting on a Canon, super cheap camera. When I started working with them, they were shooting on nicer Sony cameras. I think at the time they had like the Sony A7R, maybe the Sony A7S II. A main reason for that was because they shot a lot of events. And the way that the industry has developed and evolved, so much of the work that we do now is for celebrities, influencers, brand events, things like following someone around, doing a recap video, things that aren't really necessarily in studio with controlled lighting. And at the time, 2016, really the only mirrorless cameras that existed that were really, really good in low light were the Sony Alpha series. So the Sony A7S II was killer in low light. A lot of these events that Happy Monday was shooting, a lot of these events that I was starting to shoot were very, very low light. You couldn't really bring in external light sources because it would kind of ruin the vibe, whether it was a runway fashion show, maybe it was a brand dinner, maybe you were following a celebrity around day in the life, whatever it is. So you didn't really want to be carrying around too much equipment. And in order to have the versatility of shooting in daylight, low light, zero light, Sony was basically the only one that was capable of doing that. Now, Canon is doing mirrorless cameras that are really good, that are pretty good in low light. But in my opinion, again, my professional unpaid opinion, this is not a sponsored ad by Sony. Sony is still unmatched when it comes to low light shooting, whether it's photo or video. A lot of these examples that you're seeing on top of this video are some of my previous work, and all of this has been shot on Sony cameras. I originally started on the Sony A7R. That was the first camera of the Sony line that I decided to buy, because in this industry, if you do want to make it, if you want to have longevity, you do need to learn and know how to do a little bit of both photo and video. Everyone kind of assumes if you own a camera, you can do photo and video. Not always the case, but a lot of the time it's make or break whether you're going to get that specific gig. And it's usually relatively good money if you can do both. So for me, I was really looking for a camera that could do both photo and video pretty well. And then at the time, this is 2016, I found that the A7R was really good stills camera and could do somewhat semi-decent videos. I think it shot 4K at 24 frames, potentially cropped. So I started to invest my money that I was earning from making a living doing videos into the Sony line. If you can only afford one camera and you're looking to do both photo and video, Sony has some of the best cameras that can do that at really, really high capabilities. I think the Sony A7 IV currently is one of the better cameras that can do both photo and video. The A7R IV as well is really great when it comes to doing photos and video. They have really, really high megapixel resolution, and their video capabilities are also very strong. I think they can shoot a lot of them in 4K 60 frames per second. It's more than enough if you're working within the social media realm. So if you are looking for a one-stop shop camera that can do a little bit of both, because you are getting a lot of photo gigs, a lot of video gigs, but you can't afford 2 separate camera bodies, Sony honestly is the way to go. I love to use my close friend Nick Tomiyasu as an example, and he's been on the channel before, great photographer. I interviewed him earlier on in my channel's history, and I'm going to link that conversation up here. Currently, he is a team photographer for the LA Rams. He's a team photographer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and currently he's traveling around Europe with Rui Hachimura, who plays on the Los Angeles Lakers, kind of just documenting his vacation while he's in Europe. So right before he went on vacation with him, Rui had asked him to do photo and video, and Nick, for the life of him, has never done video, has always shot photo strictly on Nikon, but he was looking for a new camera body that could do a little bit of both, and he was asking me for recommendations, specifically on Sony, because he knew that I shot on Sony, and I recommended him the Sony a7 IV. He's been doing a great job, really switching back and forth between photo and video on Sony, and all of these are on the Sony a7 IV. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for a camera that can do both photo and video, Sony is really the way to go, specifically the Sony a7 IV. Another favorite part of the Sony camera series that I really, really enjoy is how lightweight they are. So much of my work is run and gun. It's by myself. I'm getting hired to go shoot someone at their home, in their hotel room, at a dinner, all by myself. So I don't want to be carrying around a ton of equipment. I don't want to be carrying around a ton of heavy equipment. So currently my camera setups are the Sony FX3 as my main camera body, the Sony a7S III as my secondary camera body, and when and if I have to shoot photos as well, I have the Sony a7R III. All of these camera bodies are super lightweight, super compact, very easy to carry around, and it just makes it easier to run and gun, to be a one-man band, to shoot all these things by yourself, and you're not lugging around super heavy camera equipment, and it just makes your job a whole lot easier, because the older you get, your knees start to hurt, your back starts to hurt, and you don't want to put yourself in positions where you're creating physical problems for yourself. So I really, really enjoy how lightweight these cameras are. Picture profile and the autofocus. Sony is really known for their picture profile, Sony S-Log 3. It's incredible. If you really want to dive into the nitty-gritty of coloring, color grading, color correcting, things of that nature, it allows a lot of flexibility to, take your log footage, which is a very flat picture profile with a lot of detail, and bring that to life and really make the colors pop, or really create a mood and energy for whatever your creative vision is. And it's really easy to match if you're shooting on set with a few different camera operators. If they all have Sony S-Log 3, or we're all shooting on Sony cameras, it just makes it a lot easier to match the picture profiles once you're going into color grading in the edit. The next thing that I also really like is the autofocus. The autofocus is incredible. Literally, with a tap of a button on the screen, it has really good face detection, eye detection, so that no matter how bad the lighting is in a low light situation, your camera is still really, really good when it comes to focusing on the subject at hand. So if anything, that really makes it special and a great camera for us to use. And I think for me, within the realm of social media, documenting people, shooting concerts, shooting low light events, it really does the job unmatched to anything that I've ever used. And again, I am biased. I don't really use Canon cameras, but from the reviews that I've gotten with my friends, I think I will say that for photo, Canon is superior. It is unmatched. You can't match the colors and the quality and the resolution of Canon cameras. If you see magazine cover shoots, billboards, things of that nature, so many of those are shot specifically on Canon cameras. But I think for my purposes, which is just kind of documenting fly on the wall, behind the scenes events, social outings, things of that nature, so much of that is doable within the Sony ecosystem. And I think it makes sense for me, if I'm already shooting videos on Sony, I have all Sony lenses, that I just stick to that when it comes over to photo, because buying a whole set of new lenses, Canon camera bodies, which are equally or if not more expensive as Sony, it just doesn't really make sense. So I think if I'm thinking about it, the route that I'm going, within the work that I operate in, Sony just really, really makes the most sense. But yeah, that's really it. 2024, I am still shooting on Sony 8 years later, has not let me down. I think, I've been on tour with Alicia Keys. I've shot concerts for Spotify. I've done events, premieres for Netflix. I've been on the road with, it could be anyone, so many celebrities, so many different people, things that you're seeing throughout this video, all this work. everything on this has been done on Sony. Anything is possible within this camera ecosystem, and I'm a big fan. I think I will forever and always be a Sony alpha boy. But I think, again, in the long run, depending on what you're looking to do, if you're looking to go into bigger productions, big time filmmaking, features, things of that nature, music videos, you know, at that point, you're going to start looking into different camera systems such as the Red, the RE, things of that nature. So if you're looking to start a business, a livelihood, documenting, shooting video, shooting photo, I highly recommend Sony cameras. And again, the Sony FX3, which is what I'm shooting this on, incredible camera. I recently picked it up a year ago, and I can't complain. You know, it gets the job done, and it keeps getting me paid. It keeps getting me hired. So highly recommend it. Please buy Sony. Again, not sponsored, but Sony, if you're seeing this, you know, holler at your boy. But with that being said, thank you so much again for watching. I appreciate you. If you have any questions about gear, camera equipment, work, freelancing, feel free to hit me in the comments below. DM me on Instagram at Saul Lopez. I respond to everyone's messages. And with that, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week.
I might just hit it through. That's on my element. I like dark skins, love a melanin, talk, pushing the tongue. When I'm